Hi students. All right, so we ended up with an e-learning today. So I was already at school. Well, actually I was pulling in the parking lot when my phone rang and said that we're going e-learning. So I was already at school. So I thought I would do my video from school then, just stay here and get some things done and then maybe head back home in a little bit. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure you do your bell ringer. All right, so your bell ringer today is what is an atom? And so your answer should be the definition of an atom. It's a small particle that makes up all matter. It's the smallest particle that has the properties of an element, and it's the building blocks of matter. If it's matter, it's got atoms in it. So, all right. Then we were going to go over the guided reading and make sure that you understood everything that you read and took notes over yesterday. So some of you opted to take your own notes, so just make sure that the things that I add, that you, when I talk about the guided reading, that you have notes over this material, okay? So get your guided readings out, maybe pause me, get your guided reading out, and make sure that you have the correct answers in your guided reading. All right, so A, understanding matter. Number one, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. So that, we already did that yesterday. We took notes over that, and that was the big idea on the top of our concept map. Number two, an atom is a small particle that is the building block of matter. B, number one, a proton is at the center of an atom. We'll hit that harder next semester. This is just an introduction. 1A, the nucleus is made up of protons, which have a positive, protons are positive, and neutrons, which have no charge. So anyway, I have a joke for you for the neutrons. So a neutron goes into Jamie's and orders cherry Coke, cherry flavored Coke. And when the person comes back, the waitress comes back with the cherry Coke, the neutron says, how much do I owe you? And the waitress says, for you, no charge. Okay, because neutrons have no charge. Okay. B, electrons have a negative charge and move quickly around the nucleus. We'll hit that harder next semester. Not all atoms have the same number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. That's what gives them their unique properties. That's why an atom of hydrogen does not look anything like an atom of helium. They don't even have similar properties. The only thing they have in common is that they're both gases and elements. All right, C, substances. 1, a substance is matter with a composition that's always the same. We talked about that yesterday. They can be either elements or compounds. Number 2, one type of substance is an element which contains only one type of atom. So hydrogen is an element. Oxygen is an element. They're organized on the periodic table of elements. So if they're not on there, it's not an element. 2A, each type of atom contains a different number of protons in the nucleus. That's what identifies the atom, the element, I should say. That's what identifies the element, is how many protons are in the atom. Okay. B, the number of protons in an atom is called the atomic number of the atom. Again, we're going to hit that harder. This is introduction. You need to get a basic understanding right now, and then we'll hit it harder next semester. C, most elements consist of individual atoms, but the atoms of some elements exist in groups. And again, we'll hit that harder next semester. Number 3, a compound is a type of substance containing atoms of 2 or more different elements chemically bonded together. We hit that hard yesterday. It has to be chemically bonded, okay? So what I was going to do, let me show you on the board here. What I was going to do was kind of show you like this circle will represent a hydrogen, and then this circle will represent another hydrogen, and then this circle is going to represent oxygen, and I overlap them to represent that they are bonded. They're connected together. They're bonded. They're connected. H2O. 2 parts hydrogen to 1 oxygen. It would not be a compound if it looked like this. That's not a compound. That's a mixture because there's no bonds involved. Okay. Where were we? We were at 3A, a chemical formula. H2O is a chemical formula. A chemical formula is the combination of symbols and numbers that represent a compound. And then B, the symbols in a chemical formula show the different elements in the compound. I just walked you through that. H stands for hydrogen, O stands for oxygen. The number of each type of atom in a chemical formula is given by a subscript. So the 2 after the H means there are 2 hydrogen. That's the subscript, and it identifies how many of that element, how many atoms of that element will be present in this compound. D, if no subscript is written, only 1 atom of that element is in the chemical formula. So hopefully you can see what I did there. There's no subscript after oxygen in the chemical formula H2O, but there's an O, so that means there had to be 1, okay? The reason they don't write 1s is that can get confusing, because if you write it too big, it might look like an L or an I or whatever, so you never write, there's no need to write a 1, because if you write the symbol, that means there is 1, all right? Number 4, under C, the properties of a compound are different from the properties of the elements it contains. We talked about that yesterday. Hydrogen and oxygen, each of those gases have different properties than water. Water has got a whole different set of properties than either of those gases. D1, a mixture is matter that can vary in composition. The components of a mixture are physically blended together, so they can be separated by physical means. So like we talked about the salad being a mixture, you could, you could use your fingers, but you could even use tongs or whatever and pick out the pieces. Maybe you don't like boiled eggs in your salad or something. You can use a fork, spoon, something, and pick those out. You can physically remove those. You can separate them. If you have things that are mixed together, you can use maybe a filter. Have you ever gone screening for different rocks or something where you put a bunch of sand and stuff in a container that has a filtering screen, and then you shake it? You can filter things out that way. The smaller particles will fall out and the bigger stuff will stay behind. So filtering is a physical means of separating. B, the amounts of different components of a mixture can vary from one sample to another. 2, in heterogeneous mixtures, the individual substances are not evenly mixed. Hetero, the prefix means different, so it's going to be different throughout. And we talked about Chex Mix and stuff like that for those. Number 3, in a homogeneous mixture, the individual substances are evenly mixed. A, another name for a homogeneous mixture is a solution. We talked about that yesterday on our concept map. In a solution, one or more solutes are dissolved in the solvent. A good way to remember which is the solute and which is the solvent is to remember that water is the universal solvent. It dissolves almost anything because of its polar properties. That we have already learned that, so it's a carryover from a previous chapter. So the solvent does the dissolving, the solute gets dissolved. So salt, sugar, Those are solutes. You'll need to know that. That'll be on your quiz. Okay. C, when something dissolves, it forms a solution by mixing evenly. And we talked about that yesterday as well. E1, chemical formulas can be used to describe compounds, but not solutions. It doesn't describe a solution because they're not bonded together, right? We're just dissolving salt in water. If we let the water evaporate off, we get our salt back. Or that's how they make rock candy. They make a supersaturated solution of sugar water, and then they let the water dissolve off and leave behind the sugars. So it's not bonded. If it was bonded, it wouldn't evaporate off. You'd have to like break the bond with an outside source of energy, like an electrical current or something. But that's not what happens in a solution, okay? Number 2, the components of a compound are chemically combined, but the components of a solution are physically combined. Chemically combined means a chemical bond. Physically means I can pick it apart, I can filter it, I could let it evaporate off. Those are all physical things. Okay. 3, the composition of a mixture can vary, but the composition of a compound does not vary. That's because a compound is a pure substance. What is a substance? A substance is the same throughout. Make those connections, okay? Make those applications and make those connections. All right, so what else you're doing today is I pushed out yesterday the Quizlet. I would like for you to practice the vocabulary. The quiz will be some vocabulary, but mostly application of vocabulary. So the better you are at the vocabulary, the more easily you'll be able to apply the vocabulary. You're going to do a content practice now over this lesson, and it's the vocabulary. So I would do the Quizlet a few times, and then you will see that I've attached the content practice. Try to do it without looking at your notes and stuff. If you need to use your notes, I'm not saying you're cheating if you do, but try to do it first without your notes, because we're trying to get ready to be assessed over the material, all right? And you won't get to use your notes for the assessment. So go ahead and give that a try and then submit it back to this post. All right. I think that, so did you guys hear what the Spanish teacher was saying? I don't know because I don't speak Spanish. Have a good day. Hey, be careful if you go outside. It's slippery.